Now, this dismal talk about the climate is a worry, especially if you're concerned about your kids and their perspective on life. I thought it would be worth catching up again with child psychologist Clare Rowe. She joined me a little earlier from Nowra. Clare, we've talked about Greta Thunberg before. We've seen her again in Davos over the past 24 hours. What concerns do you have for her? A teenager herself, seemingly carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, seemingly very, very concerned and pessimistic about a looming apocalypse.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, I still hold concerns for Greta. Look, she's 17 now. One could say she's a young adult. The speech overnight, geez, I thought you could hear a pin drop in that room. She's a very impressive speaker. I still have some uncomfortableness watching that of world leaders listening to this child who's essentially received a one-sided point of view her whole life, and that's essentially the problem. Yeah, she's grossly exaggerated the impact of climate change, and this isn't about being climate change denier or not. I mean, this comes down to a child who truly believes the world's about to end, and is preaching it left, right and centre, and the world leaders are listening to everything she has to say. It is concerning, and for her personally, I almost see her as a bit of a child star. She's had 12 months of an incredible high. Time Person of the Year, and I worry in 5 or 10 years' time are we all going to be saying what happened to Greta? And so for her personally, yes, I am concerned about her plight and what's going to happen after all of this is finished, because I think she's setting herself up for huge disappointment. As you said, this one person, this one saviour, the world on her shoulders type of plight to save us from all, internal damnation of what she's preaching. So essentially, we all know the countries that she needs to be talking to. China, India aren't going to be listening to Greta, and so where does that leave the individual Greta Thunberg in a couple of years? I'm not sure, Chris.
We've seen, of course, a psychological toll on child stars before. It's a lot of pressure, fame, global fame at a young age, but normally they have a bit of fun along the way. She's got all that pressure of fame and exposure, and I suppose it's some sort of glory, but of course no fun. She doesn't even crack a smile.
No, I'd love to see her smile. No one's seen it yet. But I suppose if you put yourself in her shoes, this is not an acting gig for her. This is not her kind of saying baseless words to just get the fame and fortune for 15 minutes, maybe as child stars do. If she truly believes the world is going to end, that's an enormous psychiatric load to carry. For a child of that age, absolutely enormous. And she would argue that it is about to end imminently in the next decade if we don't do something. And so what is there to smile about? And as we've discussed before many a times, that trickle-on effect to children here in Australia is very real and very happening in my office on a daily basis. Children who are not mobilised to use their creativity and their intelligence to look at what such a great economy we have, to go into brainstorming and problem-solving ideas, they are in fact paralysed to do anything because they are feeling hopeless and helpless.
Yeah, tell us more about what you, Clare, and others are finding in your surgeries, in your counselling practices with children, with this pessimism. Greta Thunberg has talked about her childhood being stolen. Are we seeing children losing the normal positivity and optimism of childhood to this fear about the future of the planet?
Oh, I think so. I couldn't say it was the majority of children, but certainly the cases I'm seeing clinically in a private practice as a child psychologist, I'm seeing it. I suppose what I'm seeing is children who are coming in and are equipped with information that I don't believe is necessary for a 7, 8, 9-year-old to have. What concerns me even more is that I'm seeing parents who are very proud of that and very proud of their kind of eco-warrior, anti-Trump ideas that their 9-year-old has, as if this 9-year-old has come up with these kind to buy ideas themselves, which is ludicrous. So I'm very concerned at the children that I'm seeing. I suppose the effect on a wider basis is that becoming disengaged from friendships, from school, from pleasurable activities. It's on their mind constantly, and classic generalised anxiety symptoms, enough to make a diagnosis in many cases, and treat either with myself or with a psychiatrist.
Now, what about the impact of the publicity around this year's bushfires? You're coming to us from the south coast of New South Wales. You've seen firsthand the damage there. No one would downplay the damage, the fear, the tragedy that's been involved in this summer of bushfires so far. But children are being told that Australia is burning, that the country is under threat, that we've never seen this before, that it's unprecedented. All sorts of exaggeration that I would have thought would have been pretty disturbing for young Australians.
Very disturbing, and as you said, when you look at some of these images from down here on the south coast, absolutely Armageddon images. And I remember in December, before I left to come down here, I was in my office and I had a young child, about Greta's age, 15-year-old female, come in, and it was one of those terrible days where the sky had this orange glow to it, and we could smell the ash kind of blowing in over Sydney. And she came in and just looked at me and welled up in tears. And I had to have this child sit down on my couch, and she said, look outside, this is happening. And so from that perspective, it's very convenient, isn't it? All this imagery is very much playing into the Greta Thunberg line that the world is ending. And so for a child, that's an enormously scary experience, and one that I don't think we can discount at all. We've got to be very careful at the way we present that to children, as I said before, because they don't actually take that on to mobilise themselves as a positive, energetic catalyst to go out and seek careers to try and problem solve and look into future bushfire prevention and so forth. They actually are completely immobilised by fear and mental health difficulties.
Yeah, it's a great worry, Claire. Thanks for interrupting your holidays to join us again.
No problem. Thanks, Chris.